Hello friends, welcome to this channel. So in the previous session, we show Amazon Athena, right? Now in this session, we are going to discuss about AWS CloudFront. AWS CloudFront. AWS CloudFront is a content delivery network or CDN, and what it does is it improves read performance because the content is going to be distributed and cached at the edge location, and the edge location are all around the world, and there is about 216 points of preserved globally. As I'm recording this lecture, and they are all the time new point of presence, so it's much more than the 30 sometimes region that always is. This is a worldwide thing, and so what this platform gives you on top of this caching at the edge, well, it gives you DDoS protection. So to protect against attacks that are distributed denial of services. It gives you interaction with a shield and also a web application firewall. We will see those into the security session of the series. But the idea is that it's really protected and it's a good way to front your applications when you deploy them globally, and also allow you to expose an external HTTPS endpoint by loading the certificates, and also talk internally in HTTPS to your application if you need to encrypt that traffic as well. So let's take a diagram. So this is a map of the world, and there are some orange reason that there everything on this graph is edge, but as you can see it's all around the globe. And so for example, say we have an S3 bucket in Australia and some users from America wants to access it. It's actually going to access an edge location close to it, so in America, and that network is going to be transmitted over the private AWS network all the way to the S3 bucket, and the content is going to be cached. So the idea is that this American user, with the more users you have in America, the more they will want to do the same kind of reads, and they will all have content served directly from America, not necessarily from Australia, because it will be fetched once into America and then served from there, so cached locally. So another user, maybe in Asia, will talk to a edge location closer to Asia, and that edge location again will support traffic to the S3 buckets to get the content and then cache it at the edge. So CloudFront allows you really to distribute your reads all around the world based on these different edge locations, and we improve latency and reduce the load on your main S3 bucket. Now, let's see what are the different CloudFront origins. Well, the first one is an S3 bucket, and you would use CloudFront in front of S3 as a very common pattern to distribute your files globally and cache them at the edge. You also get enhanced security as well. See in the hands-on between CloudFront and your S3 buckets using your CloudFront OAI or Origin Access Identity. And this allows you S3 bucket to only allow communication from CloudFront and from nowhere else, right? And then finally, you could also use CloudFront as an ingress to upload files into S3 from anywhere in the world. The other option is to use custom origin, and there must be an HTTP endpoints. So this could be anything that represent the HTTP protocol. So it could be an application load balancer. It could be an EC2 instance. It can be an S3 website. But we first must enable the bucket as a static S3 website, and note that it is different from an S3 buckets. And this debug website, we need to enable that setting as we have seen before, right? And we could be any HTTP backend you want. For example, if it was on your own premises infrastructure. Okay. Now, how this platform work at a high level? So we have a bunch of edge location all around the globe, and they are connected to the origin we define. It could be an S3 bucket or it could be an HTTP endpoints, and our client wants to access our CloudFront distribution. For doing this, the client will send an HTTP request directly into CloudFront, and this is what an HTTP request would look like. There will be URL, some query, string, parameters, and there will be also some headers. And then the edge location will forward the request to your origin, and that includes the query strings and that includes the headers. So everything gets forwarded on to your origin, and then your origin responds to the edge location. The edge location will be cached the response based on the cache setting we have defined and return the response back to our clients. And the next time another client makes a similar request, the edge location will first look into the cache before forwarding the request to the origin. So that is the whole purpose of having a CDN. Okay, so very simple. This is how CloudFront works at the high level. Now let's look at S3 as an origin in detail. So you have the cloud and you have your origin, which is your S3 buckets. And for example, you have an edge location in Los Angeles, and for example you have and some users want to read some data from there. So your edge location is going to fetch the data from your S3 bucket over the private AWS network and give you the result from the edge location. The idea is that for the edge location of CloudFront to access your S3 buckets is going to use an OAI or an origin access identity is IAM role for your CloudFront origin. And using that role is going to access your S3 buckets. And the bucket policy is going to say yes, this role is accessible, and yes, send the file to CloudFront. So this works as well for other edge location. For example, in Sao Paulo in Brazil or Mumbai or Melbourne or so all around the world. Your edge location are going to serve cached content from your S3 buckets, and so we can see how CloudFront can become super helpful as a CDN. Now, what if have a ALB or EC2 as an origin? The security changed a little bit, so we have our EC2 instance or instances, and they must be public because they must be publicly accessible from HTTP standpoint. And we have our users all around the world, so they will access our edge location and our edge location will access our EC2 instance. And as you can see, it traverses the security group. So the security group must allow the IPs of CloudFront edge location into the EC2 instances. And for this, there is a list of public IP for edge location that you can get on this website. And the idea is that the security group must allow all this public IP of edge location to allow CloudFront to fetch content from your EC2 instance. So that makes sense. Now, what if we use an ALB as an origin? So now we have a security group for the ALB, and the ALB must be public to be accessible by CloudFront. But the backend EC2 instances now can be private. So in terms of security groups for the EC2 instance, EC2 allow the security group of the load balancer. We have seen this extensively, and for the edge location, which are again public locations. It needs to access your ALB through the public network, and so that means that your security group for your ALB must allow the public IP of the edge location, the same public IP as we had from before. So two different architecture, same concept, but we better understand network security for S3, for ALB or EC2 in front or behind, I must say CloudFront. Now, CloudFront is a CDN and it also has some really nice feature. So one of them is geo restriction. So you can restrict who can access your distribution. So you can provide a whitelist. We are saying, okay, users from this list of approved countries, and only this list can go to a CloudFront. Or we can say blacklist, where we are saying, okay, the user from these countries are not allowed to access our distribution, and the way the country is determined is using a third-party geo IP database where the incoming IP is matched against it to figure out the country. So the use case for geo restriction will be when you have copyright laws to prevent access to your content, and you want to prove to regulator that you are indeed restricting content access from, say, France if you have content in America. So hope that makes sense, hope that's very clear. All right, so that's it for this theory part, and now let's go into the AWS management console and do hands-on. Okay, so as you can see, this is my AWS management console. So let's go ahead and practice using CloudFront. But first, we need to create an S3 bucket. So here, I want you to create a bucket called Demo CloudFront 2022 and V2 and a region. So I think this is good. I will leave all public access blocking, and simply I will scroll down, then just click on create my bucket. So this is the bucket that is going to host our website, and so click on view detail to go into the bucket, and here I'm going to upload now 3 files into my bucket. So I will upload my index.html, my mountain.jpg, and the castle.jpg. Upload. So all these files are uploaded, and what I want you to see is that these files, so if we take for example this index.html, we have two ways to access it. We can either access it using the object URL, but this is not going to work because my bucket is not public, so I am going to get an access denied, as you can see. Or we can say, for example, click on this open button, which actually generate a pre-signed URL, and this particular URL allows me to access my index.html file. But obviously my castle.jpg is not working for here. So as we can see, we have some way of accessing our files in S3, but we want to allow the access of these files to CloudFront. And so to do so, what I am going to do is just go into the CloudFront service itself. So I will look for the service name CloudFront, and we can observe that CloudFront is global service that does not require region selection because we are deploying a CloudFront distribution all around the world. So we are going to create our first distribution here, and we need to choose an origin domain. So here we have different options. So we have Amazon S3, Elastic Load Balancer, etc, etc. As you can see, we have to choose Amazon S3. So we are going to choose this demo CloudFront bucket. But as you can see, you could enter here your own origin domain name if you wanted to. If you wanted to have a custom STV origin, right? But in this example, we are going to use Amazon S3. So I just use a drop down and select Amazon S3 bucket. Now the name of my origin is going to be like this. And we are going to create a OAI. So it's an origin access identity. And this is going to available because we are using S3 bucket, right? So here we have to create an OAI. So what I'm going to do is I am going to click on create OAI. This is going to create this OAI name right here. So I will click on create, and here I am able to choose this newly created OAI. So what is going to happen is that CloudFront is going to access my S3 bucket using this identity, and we can edit the bucket policy of the S3 bucket to allow real access to the OAI. So let's say yes. Let's update the bucket policy, and what we can do is we can check that if we go right now into permission, scroll down and look at the bucket policy. Well, currently the bucket policy is empty. Okay, so here we are going to scroll down, and then we are not going to change any of this setting for now. So let's scroll down all the way down, and the default root object is the file name that you wanted to return to your request if we are using the root URL. So we are just going to here index.html, and now let's click on create distribution, and the distribution is now deploying. It takes about 4 to 5 minutes, so let me pause the video. So my distribution is now created, and I can copy the distribution domain name, enter in a new tab, and simply press enter. And as you can see, we get hello world and then our castle.jpg file and so on. So that means that the CloudFront distribution is working. I can still not access my file directly by using the URL in Amazon S3. The only way I can access my file is by using this CloudFront. Okay, so CloudFront is distributing my content from Amazon S3. So here we can also do mountain.jpg for example, and yes, we can see the mountain.jpg file or obviously castle.jpg file. But the cool thing about is that now this file are cached. So that means that if I go back to my mountain.jpg file, it's actually not being served from Amazon S3 anymore. It's served directly from a CloudFront edge location. Same if I went back to my index.html, now the request does not make it go all the way through to Amazon S3. It is cached yet again in an edge location. So this really shows the power of using a CloudFront distribution on top of Amazon S3, because now this content is going to be available globally with low latency. The last thing I want to check is that if we go back to our permission here, as you can see, the bucket policy was empty. But if I refresh the page, now as you can see, the bucket policy is now not empty and it contains a statement that allows the principal. And this is CloudFront origin access identity principal to do get object and any resources in my S3 bucket. And we can have a look at the identity. So here on the left hand side, if I go and scroll down and look at origin access identities, we can find here the origin access identity that we have created, that is associated with our CloudFront distribution, and that is allowing us CloudFront mostly to get the content from the S3 buckets and then distribute it as a public URL. So guys, that's it for this lecture. I hope you like it and I'll see you in the next lecture. If you have any doubt or any question, feel free to ask in the comment section below. I will answer you as soon as I can. So thank you for watching. Bye and have a nice day.